All right, it looks like a couple of people are here already. So we'll get started with the informational session in about 5 minutes. We'll give everybody until 7:05 to join the call. Alrighty, so I think we'll get started now with the presentation. So thank you to those who could attend. I know that with the storm on the East Coast and everything, it could have been a bit hard with Wi-Fi and power out and stuff, but thank you to those that could make it. So welcome to the SBYIR Summer 2020 informational session. My name is Stephanie, and I am Editor-in-Chief of SBYIR.
Oh, and my name is Priya. I'm the head of cabinet of SBYIR.
Okay. Before we get into the available positions and branches of SBYIR, I just want to give a little bit of an introduction to what the organization is about and what we do. So what is SBYIR? SBYIR stands for Stony Brook Young Investigators Review. We are an undergraduate science journal on campus. Our mission is composed of 3 main goals. We want to provide students with a forum for those who are interested in scientific writing. We also want to make science accessible and understandable to the general public. And finally, in our journal and in our content, we hope to highlight the amazing research done by faculty and undergraduates on Stony Brook campus itself. To the right, that picture is a picture of our current staff right now, minus a couple of members. But that's our staff. Right below it is our main sponsor, the Alan Alda Center for Communicating Science, which is actually based out of Melville Library at Stony Brook. They share a common goal with us in making science accessible and understandable to the general public. But that's really our organization in a nutshell. Give me a second. So as I said, we're going to talk about the three main branches of SBYIR, as well as the available positions within each branch. As I said before, my name is Stephanie. I am editor-in-chief of SBYIR, so I not only oversee the entire club, but I also run the editorial branch. We also have cabinet and layout branches. Priya Agarwal, who just introduced herself, she is head of cabinet, and she will be explaining the available positions in cabinet. Lauren Yoon is our layout chief. However, she couldn't make it with this meeting tonight, but Priya will be explaining the available positions within layout. I just want to draw your attention to the stars next to the positions. Here, those stars signify that those positions are currently recruiting for members. So the only positions we're not recruiting for are managing editor and associate editors at this time. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about the editorial branch. The editorial branch is mainly composed of writers, editors, and peer reviewers. I want to start with the writers first. So typically, SBYIR publishes 6 article formats, or 6 types of articles. I've summarized them here on this slide. We have research highlights, research reviews, commentary pieces, primary article pieces, personal and technical interviews. So one of the more popular article types is the research highlight. Those are 300 to 400 words in length, and they're essentially summary pieces of recently published articles, obviously peer-reviewed articles. So research highlight writers are allowed to write about any recent article that they find of their choosing. We also require research highlight writers to also write articles based on recently published research from Stony Brook researchers. Next, we have the research reviews. Those are thematic synthesis pieces. These are longer than research highlights. They are 6 to 8 pages in length, and they are synthesis pieces in that you read a set of literature articles, you summarize and synthesize them into a 6 to 8 length piece. So writers are able to choose any topic they'd like to write about as long as it is relevant to the theme, the journal theme. So I will talk about more in depthly the journal theme for fall 2020 later, but these are why we call research reviews thematic synthesis pieces. So commentary pieces are very similar to research reviews in that they are thematic. However, they're a bit more opinion-based in that you can take on a bit of a more opinionated tone, argumentative tone. However, these pieces must be rooted in scientific evidence, which goes for the rest of the pieces that we publish. Moving on to the primary article pieces, those are typically reserved for students who are undergraduate researchers in labs on campus and would like to publish that research in our journal. Finally, we have personal and technical interviews. Both types of articles are for writers who would like to interview a Stony Brook researcher on campus. The only difference is that personal interviews deal a little bit more with the career and the personal life of a researcher, whereas the technical interview deals with more of the nitty-gritty research that the researcher who is being interviewed is doing. Okay. I also want to mention that we are highly recruiting for writers. Specifically, we are seeking 18 to 20 writers this semester. So if this is a position you're interested in, I highly encourage you to apply for it. So at this point, I want to touch on the journal theme a bit. The journal theme for fall 2020 is sensory science. Sensory science involves perception, measurement, and analysis of the 5 basic senses, as well as other subtle senses such as pain. The sensory science theme also encompasses like technological applications and the development of sensors, such as artificial intelligence, as well as the ecological study of sensory perception adaptations in different organisms. So as you can see, the journal theme of sensory science is specific. However, there are a multitude of subtopics and aspects that you can choose to cover as a writer. I want to mention that, as a writer, you obviously you shouldn't cover various aspects of sensory science in one article. Rather, you should choose one topic of sensory science and really dive deep into that topic with your article. I also encourage you guys as writers to think outside the box. Obviously, you guys don't need to choose a aspect of sensory science, a topic that we have suggested, but definitely keep an open mind with our journal theme. As long as it's relevant to the journal team, we will allow you to write about any topic. Okay, moving on to publishing. I want to say that SBYIR publishes on mainly 2 different forums or mediums. We have a journal that we publish biannually in the fall and spring semester. The one that you see here was the spring 2020 journal. As you can see, we have articles such as Build a Baby, which was a research article about genetic design. And on the right, the far right, you see we have a research highlight article, which is a bit shorter, but the aesthetics in both are really quite stunning. To your far left, that was a screenshot of our website. So on our website, we publish year-round, not just in the fall and spring semesters. And on the website, we mainly publish those short 300 to 400 word research highlights that I was talking about. In the journal, we publish both research highlights as well as the largest pieces, such as the research review, the commentary piece, and the interviews. Okay? Okay. Now I want to move on to commitment and deadlines. This is really a question that I got a lot during the application season. Are students able to be a writer and also fulfill, other academic activities and, their workload? How does that factor in? So I want to break down this discussion into 2 sections. I first want to talk about reviews, writers that write reviews, interviews, and commentaries. Those I consider big pieces, and because they're 6 to 8 pages, so I will often be referring to them as big piece writers or big pieces. So how this essentially works is that when you apply to be a writer, you submit a rough draft of your topic or your article that you'd like to write along with your application. When you are accepted as a writer, we then pair you with an editor, and from there you work with your editor to draft and develop your article over the next couple of weeks. As you might be able to tell, these bigger piece writers, they go through a couple of drafts, first draft, second, third, and final. You might be able to tell that these drafts are 2 weeks apart from each other, so that we give you a bit of time to revise and develop your piece during each of the revisions. I would now like to move on to the research highlight pieces or research highlight writers. Those writers operate on a bit of a different schedule than the bigger piece writers. Highlights essentially follow a schedule that we put out at the beginning of the semester. So it might be a bit confusing to understand now, but essentially research highlight writers submit 2 of those 300 to 400 word articles per round. And there are about 3 rounds per semester, which are distributed evenly throughout the semester. So essentially, research highlight writers are submitting 6 total articles during the semester. So there are some differences between the deadlines between bigger piece and smaller piece writers, but I think the workload is essentially the same. I don't really think, I think it's something you can it's something you can balance well as long as you have good time management skills, and most importantly, that you communicate with your editor. We are strict with deadlines, but we are definitely flexible in certain situations. Oh, one last thing I'd like to mention is that research highlight writers are recruited to be writers for us for the full academic year, whereas bigger piece writers of reviews, interviews, and commentaries, they are only recruited for one semester. So those research review writers who apply for the fall 2020 semester, they want to write for the spring 2021 semester, they just have to reapply during that transition period in the winter session. Okay. Alrighty, so I want to now talk about editorial positions. There are three main types of editorial positions: associate editor, copy editor, and peer reviewer. I also want to bring your attention to the stars next to copy editor and peer reviewer. As I said before, for associate editor, we are not currently recruiting right now, but I'll just give you a little bit of description of what those kinds of editors do. So associate editors work with 1 to 2 writers at a time. They edit longer pieces of 6 to 8 pages long. They edit for both grammar and content. Copy editors, in contrast, those are the ones that work with those research highlight pieces I was talking about, those shorter pieces. They work with 2 to 3 writers at a time, and they are mostly editing for grammatical and citation edits. I also want to say about copy editors, this is often a popular position to apply for. However, this semester we do have limited availability for this position. It's not to say that you can't apply, but I would also encourage you to check out other positions in editorial, such as peer reviewer or a writer, if you are interested in this branch as a whole. Lastly, I would like to talk about peer reviewer positions. This is a new position that we've rolled out for this semester. So therefore it's being highly recruited for, as I noted down below. Peer reviewers essentially understand and correct the scientific content of a writer's piece. So peer reviewers will be grouped with a writer and an editor during the semester, and they will work as a team to assess the scientific accuracy of the writer's piece. So essentially what peer reviewers are doing is that they're looking at the references, the citations used by the writer, they're looking at the writer's piece, the content of that, and they're comparing to see whether the science is correct within the writer's piece. I do want to mention that there's no expertise needed per se for the peer reviewer position. I think a lot of people are a bit worried about that, but you don't need to be an expert in biology or chemistry to be a peer reviewer for those kinds of articles. We only require that you are proficient in reading and analyzing journal articles and literature review, and really having those skills, because that will be important to assessing the science accuracy of these pieces. All right, so now I want to hand the presentation over to Priya. She will be introducing positions available in layout and later in cabinet.
All right, hi everyone. My name is Priya. I am the head of cabinet, and I'll be starting off by talking about layout on behalf of Lauren Yoon, who, as Steph said, could not make it earlier. So I'll be going over the 2 positions in layout, layout editors and graphic editors. So layout editors are one of the long-standing positions that we've had in SBYIR. And what they do essentially is they work with the writers, associate editors, and also the layout chief to design the layout of the journal. So if you see the image on the lower right, that's an example of a piece that has text, but also it has to be laid out in a specific way. There can be images or quotations. So layout editors are kind of the people that turn the piece from a body of written text into an actual, page-by-page spread in the journal. Layout editors are responsible for the artistic direction of that journal. By that means, then they decide, where the pictures go and how, visually the audience that reads the journal interacts with it. We do prefer that applicants for the layout editor position have experience with InDesign or Photoshop, but of course that's not required. we do help people that are newer to the softwares adjust, especially in the beginning part of the semester. So, if you have some experience, but you don't feel, entirely comfortable or ready, that's totally fine. We actually work with you to help get you ready for this position. I also want to add that, as Stephanie mentioned earlier, layout editor is one of the start positions. And so recently, most of our layout staff graduated. And so we are in strong need for layout editors. Additionally, in terms of workload and commitment, layout editors work on the middle to end of the semester. So the layout team basically operates as soon as the pieces are in. That's when they really start going and start putting everything together for the journal. And so graphic editors are a new position on our team. We're actually having our first set of graphic editors start this coming semester, the fall semester. So this position came about in response to, this growing issue that we saw with our journal. Though we had amazing pieces, in terms of written quality, the issue that we had was, as a journal, we can't really use copyrighted images. And so we've noticed that though the writing quality would be amazing for, a writer's piece, especially after rounds and rounds of editing, their graphics were always lacking, or not always, but they were oftentimes lacking. And we really wanted to address that issue and make the articles in the journal not only appear, technically interesting and, interesting to read, but also fascinating to look at and visually striking. So graphic editors will be responsible for working with the writers, the associate editors, and the layout editors for a piece, and as a team, design graphics for pieces. This on the side here is an example of a diagram or a graphic that one of our layout editors made this past year, Como. And if you were to look carefully, you can see that it actually has, visual quality. You can really see it and appreciate it, but it also has some information to it. You can see that it's a diagram of a process that highlights, how insulin is measured in the body and how that interacts with technology. So it's a simple graphic, but it does a lot for the viewer. So you're essentially contributing, to the artistic direction of the journal, which in recent years, alongside our theme, has gone to match, the qualities that we're looking for. We're looking to become more comprehensive. And, this semester, we really want to embrace the idea of sensory science, not just in the articles, but in the way that the articles are seen. For graphic editors, we do prefer that you have some experience with Illustrator or GIMP or any kind of vector-based software, just because the image will have to be resized depending on the size of the article. But again, if you are newer to these softwares, it is okay. However, for this position, we might not be able to do as much training. And sorry, just to go back, I just want to mention again that since this is a new position, that means that all spots are available for the graphic editor role. And so we are, again, strongly seeking graphic editors this coming year. And you could have probably gotten this idea earlier from the way that I was explaining the different members of layout, but layout is very comprehensive, and we work together in a team that consists of not just you as a layout editor or you as a graphic editor, but the other people responsible for the piece, including the other graphic or layout editor, as well as the writer and the actual associate editor. And so we form this little bubble for that creates each article or each piece in the journal as its own individual but also comprehensive kind of work of art almost. We go from the aspect of being, a journal article and convert it into, an actual, visually striking journal article that has aesthetic value to it. And so now I'd like to switch over to explaining Cabinet. As I said earlier, for those of you who might have joined in later, my name is Priya Agarwal and I'm the head of Cabinet. So Cabinet, unlike the other two branches of SBYIR, is the community-oriented branch. So previously when I spoke about layout and when Stephanie spoke about editorial, those two branches contribute directly to the journal. So they create the journal. On the other hand, Cabinet is involved in the community mission of SBYIR. So SBYIR's mission, making science accessible to the public, is what we try to embrace and try to enact in all of our actions. I like to say that SBYIR has, in Cabinet, we have the 3 C's: collaborations, community, and communication. And so, we work on those 3 C's and try to build SBYIR not just as a journal, but as an organization determined to spread communication and literacy and science. With regard to collaborations, Cabinet is responsible for making, the helpful and interesting scientific events that we have on campus. We also have community projects, so we run our own large-scale events. And we also are responsible for communicating the work that's done in SBYIR with the rest of the public. So we run the website, which I'll describe later through the webmaster position. We also are responsible for social media. So we're the ones that make Instagram and Facebook posts. So first, I'd like to talk about the SBYIR Colloquium, or the biannual SBYIR Colloquium. This is actually our main event this is our keystone event. We have it every semester, and it is essentially a talk that's given by esteemed off-campus researchers. So in the past, we've actually had Nobel laureates, the Queen of Carbon Science, esteemed marine biologist Sylvia Earle. So we've had these amazing speakers. We've also had speakers in artificial intelligence, computer science, and physics. So, through the SBYIR Colloquium, we try to give a format by which, any Stony Brook student can attend and listen to, an incredible researcher talk about their recent research and their advancements. And Cabinet plays the important role of searching for these speakers, organizing the event, and then running the event itself. So as soon as the semester starts, we create an Excel spreadsheet of people that we're interested in, reach out to them, try to figure out what dates work for them, what dates work for us, and really make this event flesh out and turn into something, accessible to the Stony Brook community. This semester, as in previous semesters, we are trying to make our colloquium actually follow the idea of the theme. So as Stephanie mentioned earlier, this semester we're following a sensory science theme, and so we hope that we can find a speaker that actually embraces that as well and can talk about research and recent advancements in sensory science. And in this picture you can actually see our recent one of our more recent speakers and some of our members of staff. In the previous slide, actually, there was also an image of Sylvia Earle, who I mentioned earlier. And the Young Investigators Writing Competition is something that I'm personally very passionate and excited about. So this is a recent initiative that started this year. It's essentially a high school writing competition for Long Island students. And so the way that this came about was, in response to, the pandemic and, schools closing, we noticed that there were many high school students that were lacking a forum by which they can engage in scientific matters, especially since it's not really safe for high school students to consider, working in a lab. And also not every high school student usually has access to a lab or those kind of resources. There's not really that many opportunities for engagement at the high school level. So we wanted to make something that was accessible to not just, a couple of students, but to the entire Long Island community. So this writing competition allowed students to explore their different interests in biology, environmental science, computer science, and engineering. And Cabinet actually was in charge of making the competition and running it itself. So, going back to, March 14th when school closed or, went online, we figured out the rules and rewards, wrote the terms and conditions, chose the prompts, fleshed out the prompts, wrote the prompts, designed the website, younginvestigatorswc.com. We did all the outreach, so calling librarians, calling teachers, emailing high school students. And we also created flyers like this one that we have on this slide, which was created by one of our Cabinet members, Debelina. So, the Young Investigators Writing Competition, even in its first year, this year alone, recently we closed the application and we actually received entries from 121 students, which is really amazing for our first year. And, in light of the pandemic, that we were able to get that kind of response. So if you join Cabinet, you would be able to make, these kind of amazing opportunities for the Long Island community as a whole. I also would like it to be said that, since this is really big for us, it is kind of preferred if, you apply and you can indicate that you have availability in the summer, because that means that you could probably help out a lot and, be involved in actually running the competition itself. So as I mentioned earlier, Cabinet is involved in event planning, right? Like those two big events that I mentioned earlier, but we also try to be involved on the smaller scale too, because not everything, that we work on is just focused on, these larger scale events. So we have educational events, engagement events, and team bonding events. So with regards to education, those are really intended to, educate the general public or the Stony Brook community and, provide a resource or a platform for them. So this comes by way of the colloquiums that we have. We also have workshops where, will help students, understand scientific literacy, how to write professionally, how to present themselves. We also have community presentations. So this is a recent outreach activity we've been trying to do, where we go to different libraries and we actually present on matters relevant to the theme, but it's a way to engage the public in science, because not everyone has access to the developments in science that are happening today. Next, we have engagement. So science is great and interesting and all, but you need to convey that interest. You can't just educate people. So through engagement methods, we try to engage people in the sciences, and really make science fun for everybody. So we do this through the Young Investigators Writing Competition. First of all, that's the most recent opportunity that I've described earlier. We're also having a virtual scavenger hunt during orientation weekend. I think we're having it for 2 days, where students can kind of come in and kind of explore campus virtually over, street view and 3D views. We're also planning on having movie nights. We're not really sure by which method. We might make it a virtual movie night, but just ways to, engage people with the Stony Brook community and the Stony Brook scientific community. We also just have general collaborations with our clubs. We're always down to communicate with other clubs and figure out like different events that we can have. Finally, we have team bonding. So team bonding, unlike the past 2 categories, is more restrictive to just our writers and staff. This comes by way of, team movie nights, photo shoots, and socials, just ways to show that our writers and staff, that we appreciate them, and also to build, the sense of SBYIR family. So this is like a little short video. I took it on my phone because I don't have any internet right now, but this is just to highlight our website, SBYIRreview.com. This year, we're actually recruiting 2 webmasters who would be designing and posting articles to our website. As members of cabinet, they can also help out with website planning if they so desire. So essentially what Stephanie just showed was like a little video of what our website looks like on mobile, and how students can easily go through the website and, be able to see these visually. That's the job of a webmaster, to make the highlights accessible to the general public.
Okay, before we move on to the Q&A portion of the presentation, I just want to give a bit more information about the application process, just really a reminder of the deadlines and that kind of thing. So as you guys probably know, the staff application is due on August 14th at midnight, and the writer application is due on August 21st, a week later. We make the staff application due 1 week earlier because when we recruit staff, we have the requirement of an interview. So we do need that week before the semester starts to schedule those interviews. These deadlines are relatively strict. So if you'd like an email reminders for the deadlines, you can fill out that little tiny URL there for email reminders. And finally, we wanted to address the question that, what if I don't get into SBYIR in this application cycle? As you might be able to tell that, we are sort of a close-knit and a small organization. A lot of our staff members, such as our editors, our cabinet members and layout editors, they stay with us over the course of a couple of years until they graduate. So there's not a ton of turnover in staff during each application cycle. And that translates to the fact that, a position you might be interested in might not be, widely available or available at all during a specific application cycle. I don't want that to just discourage you guys though. I want to say that, there's still many ways to be involved with SBYIR and, the SBU scientific community in general. Definitely come to our events, such as, a colloquium, if we do hold one this semester, such as our other events, such as the scavenger hunt that we're holding during the opening weekend, I believe. Definitely subscribe to our website to be updated on any kinds of articles or research highlights that we publish. Follow our social media on Facebook and Instagram, and just in general, join other organizations on campus to stay tuned with science. I do want to say that, if you are interested in one position and, but it's very limited in availability, I will say that it is slightly easier to transition once you are in SBYIR. So just definitely keep an open mind with things that you may be interested in SBYIR, and continue to apply next semester and next year if you are definitely interested. Okay, so this is our email, Instagram, Facebook, and website. This concludes the presentation portion, but definitely stick around for the question and answer. I do want to say that because of the the recent storm and the power outages, we have recorded this this presentation, and we will be sharing it on our YouTube. I don't think our YouTube is listed here, but we will be sending out emails to people who have attended this presentation if you want to watch it again. And also we will be putting it on our Instagram and other social media that we do have a YouTube, and this presentation will be shared on there. Alrighty, so thank you for coming to our presentation. Let me, I don't know if I want to stop sharing. I'm not going to stop sharing for right now, but if you have any questions, definitely put them into the chat, or you can just shout them out as we go.
Stephanie, do you want to handle the first few questions, or do you want me to?
I can handle the first few questions.
Okay.
Anything new that comes in, maybe you can handle those. Okay.
Of course, if any of you guys have any questions, you can also just shout them out. Stephanie will just be, responding to the ones in chat. Unless Stephanie, if you want to actually read the questions out loud and answer them out loud.
That's what I was just thinking. So yeah, actually I will do that instead of responding privately to everything. One person had a question about the peer editing position, and if they're supposed to research the topic on their own, how does that work? How do you assess accuracy and gain expertise? I think that with even with an editing position and with the peer review position, you will be doing a bit of a elementary research on your own into a topic. Obviously, the writer will be providing a set of references, so you can work off of the references that they provide. And also, if you don't know a technical word or something in that's important to the writer's piece, or concept that's important to this piece, you will be responsible for researching that topic a little bit, and or that word a little bit, and educating yourself a little bit before you assess the accuracy of that piece. Let me know if I didn't clarify that right, or if you need more information.
If I could actually just add to that, Stephanie. One thing that's also nice is that most writers by a certain point will also have in-text citations. So they'll provide you with the number that corresponds to which reference you can look at. So, if they're talking about one paper, in X study they found this, you can easily, say, okay, this is reference 1, let me go to reference 1, let me pull up this journal article. Okay, does this journal article actually say this finding, or is this just an incorrect assumption or an incorrect takeaway?
Exactly. So if there are no other questions about that, I'll move on to the next question, which was that, how many graphic editors will we be recruiting? Priya, do you want to cover that?
So as of right now, I believe that it's probably going to be 3 to 4, although I can double check with our layout chief if you want and just get back to you. I can take record of your names just so that I can email you back with that information.
Yeah.
Does anyone else want to know the answer to that question by any chance? Should I just email it to everybody?
I mean, I think we can, it should be included on our maybe we can include it on our application.
Yeah, of course, definitely.
But when I spoke to Lauren, I think that we will be recruiting, about 2 to 3 maybe. I can foresee. Yeah, if that is a rough ballpark to answer your question. What else? So someone asked, is it possible to apply for both a staff and writing position? Yes, it definitely is possible to apply for both positions. However, you won't be picked for both positions. You can only, do one position at a time, but you can definitely apply for both. A lot of applicants have done that. Another person asked, are we allowed to apply for more than one position? And yes, you can. You can definitely apply for more than one position. I believe you just have to fill out the application separately each time in order to indicate that.
Just to add to that also, there's no like limit to how many applications you can put in. So if you're interested in, being a layout editor and a graphic editor and even a cabinet member, you can send in all 3 applications. It's fine. It doesn't have to stay within the same branch. As long as you show interest, it's totally fine.
Yep, definitely. I think that's all the questions I see on my end. Do you have any, Priya, that you see?
I don't have any others, although I will admit that right now I'm running on a weird, post-tropical storm system, so I might not be getting your messages.
Oh,
so if anyone has any messages, just put it in the main chat, just so that we can all see it. Or send it to Stephanie.
I have a question. How many scientific writers or highlight writers are you guys taking for the semester?
So let me think about that for a second. I think our max that I typically take is about 10 research highlight writers. Obviously that number will vary based on, the interest that is there, but we have a set number of copy editors who work with these research highlights, and I believe we have 4 or 5 of them right now. So, and I typically assign 2 highlight writers to each of those 5 copy editors. So I would say about max 10 writers I would take, give or take a few.
Thank you.
Okay, I see another question. How much feedback should we expect from staff? For example, if I were to approach a professor with a question, would that be inappropriate? Are you talking about interviews? Are you talking about like the Stony Brook staff for editing? I'm sorry, I'm just a little confused. Are you talking about like the writing process, like for once you're members? So staff as in like the e-board? Or, because I'm just not sure. Okay, so I think, I'm not sure where your question is going, but I think it's going towards, how much are, you as editors, you as staff members interacting with everybody else. If that's the case, then I would say that it's, we are a tight-knit club, so it wouldn't be inappropriate at all to talk to, other e-board members, other staff members. In terms of like a professor, we don't have a professor advisor, so you wouldn't be really talking to professors once you're in our club, unless you are a writer who is interviewing a professor. And in that case, if that was where your question was going, then typically interviewers who are, writers who want to write an interview piece, they typically know the professor that they are interviewing a little bit, and they are comfortable asking them questions. I don't know. I think that's where you were going with that, Priya. Did you want to add anything?
I might have been understanding the question in a different way, of course. But in case if this helps anybody, with regards to the quality of, caliber of what we expect of a peer reviewer, we of course understand that many of you are incoming freshmen or sophomores that might not have taken that many, college level biology classes, AP Chem, all of those things. That's totally fine. When we say that it's required of you to have, the ability to like read and analyze scientific journal articles, that doesn't mean that we expect you to read a journal article in first pass and know exactly what you're reading. Even now for me as an incoming senior, I struggle with some journal articles. So we don't expect that of you at all. What we do expect of you is, as described earlier, this idea of, reading a sentence, being able to go to the journal article, kind of like go through the sections, read the abstract, read the conclusion a little bit, and then check whatever needs to be checked against the article. So it's not extremely, heavy hitting, something that we wouldn't expect someone to do. Like, it's something that we expect that anybody should be able to kind of be able to do if they're entering even their freshman year of college. You know, it is a relatively, you know, accessible position for any student.
Yeah, and I also want to add in terms of getting feedback from the staff. Once we accept copy editors and associate editors specifically, they do go through a training process with our more veteran editors and our managing editors. So you are certainly not thrown into anything, and you are definitely trained before you start, you know, picking up pieces on your own. And you certainly receive a lot of feedback from, you know, e-board members and other editors during that time. Hopefully that was helpful. I have another question here. All right, so someone has a question in terms of physics and astrophysics papers that are very math and data heavy. Are we expected to explain the math behind it or just conceptual ideas from a given paper? I'm going to take this from the perspective of if you're applying for as a writer and you're interested in a certain mathematically heavy topic. I think it really depends on what exactly you're writing about, what exactly your topic is within physics or math or astrophysics. You know, if you feel like, I understand that in those topics, it can be very technically hard to explain the math and data. And so we certainly don't expect that from any of you guys. If you are able to do that, then that's, you know, perfect. But we are just looking for articles that on a certain topic that, you know, that flows in a well-read way and, you know, explains the science well. That doesn't necessarily mean that you have to go, you know, really into the nitty-gritty math and data if you don't understand it. So please don't let that scare you. But if you can do that, that's fine. I hope that helped. We have another question. Can you elaborate more on becoming a writer for research and interviews and applying every semester? So to become a writer for reviews and interviews, as I explained a little bit before, how the application process works is that when you apply to be a writer, you of a research review or an interview, you will submit a rough outline of what your piece will look like. In the case of a research review, you'll put like bullets of, you know, what points you want to hit in your body paragraphs, and you'll put like your citations that you want to touch on. In terms of interviews, you're going to give us, you know, the name of the professor that you want to interview, as well as the questions that you want to ask them. That is part of, you know, the outline that you submit along with your application. Once you're accepted as a writer, we pair you guys with editors, and then over the course of a couple of weeks, almost till I would say mid to end October, you guys are consistently working to craft an article and develop it until the final draft. I didn't touch on this before, but once you hit the final draft as a writer, you're sort of done with all of the work that's needed for a writer. In terms of research reviewers and interview writers applying every semester, we require that because I feel that research highlight writers, they are responsible for less content during the semester, so that's why we have them come on for the entire academic year, whereas the bigger piece writers do write one whole 6 to 8 page piece a semester, and we do want to have variation in what types of big piece articles that we publish in our journal each semester, so that's why we do have them apply again if they would like to in the through the winter session. I want to say that the application that's put out during the winter session is exactly the same as the applications that we have out now. The only difference is that, you know, there's going to be a different journal theme, and you'll just have to come up with a different topic based on the journal theme for next semester. I hope that answered your question a little bit. Another question, are we allowed to apply for more than one writing position? Yes, you are allowed to apply for more than one writing position. I believe that what we do in the application is we ask you to rank the types of articles that you'd like to write. So say that you are super interested in writing research highlights, but we only take a certain number of research highlight writers, and you might not make the cut for that. Well, we can have you write as and you say that first rank was research highlights and second rank was research reviews. We can put you on as your second preference as a research review writer. So you're only going to be writing one article type per semester, but you're definitely allowed to have a preference for different article types and apply to more than one, if that makes sense.
And then just to add to that, sorry, on the application for being a writer, there is an option to submit proposals for the different positions that you're interested in. So if you are interested in being a highlight writer, but also a review writer, you can have 2 different proposals, one for being a highlight writer and then one for being a review writer.
Yes. A little thing that I want to mention is that that you might have seen is that research review pieces and commentary pieces are very similar. So I don't know if it's emphasized in the application, but because research reviews and commentary pieces are so similar, I don't necessarily need you to submit 2 very different proposals. If you do want to apply to both positions, just make that clarification in your application that you would be interested in writing a research review or a commentary piece, but maybe you just have a bit more of a preference for research reviews, so you rank that second and rank the commentary piece third, if that makes sense. We have another question. Could you re-explain the difference between a copy editor and a peer reviewer? Yes, of course. So a copy editor, like I said, was those editors mainly deal with those shorter 300 to 400 word length pieces that summarize, that are summaries on a current recently published article. So those editors are really just focusing on the grammar and the citations of that shorter piece. That's as opposed to a peer reviewer, where their role is slightly different. They're not really looking at the grammar or the citations of a piece. Peer reviewers are looking at the scientific content of the piece. They're looking at the accuracy of the piece. So peer reviewers will be paired with a writer who's also paired with a copy editor maybe, but peer reviewers will not be looking at the grammar or the citations of the research highlight. Rather, they'll be looking at the scientific content. So they might go into the citations, not to see if they're right, if they're like in the right format, but you're going to see if they are, you're going to read the citations, you're going to assess what kind of science is the writer talking about, what information do they pull from those citations, and compare that to the content in that research highlight. Does that make sense? Hopefully. Okay, we have another question. Peer reviewers are they for the whole year or just one semester like the writing? Yes, that's a very good question actually. So peer reviewers, I want to make the distinction between writers and editorial staff members. So writers, they are very much a part of the club in a sense, but for logistical purposes, they are not considered staff members because we recruit new writers continuously. In contrast, peer reviewers are essentially staff members because once you are recruited as a peer reviewer, once you are recruited as an editor or as a cabinet member, you stay on indefinitely until you either graduate or until you want to resign for whatever reason. So peer reviewers do not need to be rehired by any means. They stay on as a legitimate staff member within our team. We have another question. If you are taken as a writer this year, would you have to apply again next year? Yes, you would, definitely. Whether it be a, so say we finished the spring 2021 semester and you're looking to apply again into the fall 2021 semester, whether you were a research highlight writer or you were a bigger piece writer, you do have to apply again from year to year. The only difference in there was that if you were a highlight writer going from the fall to the spring semester, you didn't have to reapply. but yes, from year to year, you definitely have to reapply as a writer.
I want to quickly go back to one point that Stephanie brought up about how long people stay on staff. So just to clarify, it's all the different members of staff that stay on for the year. So in addition to editorial, it's also layout, and it's also the cabinet members. So, you know, the reason why, I guess Stephanie can also explain further why we have writers reapply every semester, in case if you want to reiterate that, Stephanie.
Yeah, I can definitely reiterate that and why that is. It's essentially so that we can have, you know, different members of the Stony Brook community write and be seen and published in our journal. If we did keep on writers, you know, as staff members, as peer reviewers, and as cabinet members are, there wouldn't be as much variation in the journal. And we do want to give, you know, all undergraduate students from all different, you know, years a chance to write for our journal. But I don't want that to make it seem as though writers are not important. They essentially make our journal. It's just that we do have to recruit each year a different batch of writers. But we've had writers who have continued with us for years now. So if you want to stay on as a writer for a year, we definitely like those kinds of writers. You would just need to reapply.
Just to also add on to that, it's not as if, you know, it's impossible to become a writer because, you know, all the writers are reapplying or anything like that. As an organization, we always have people in different years. So we always have seniors that are graduating, like we explained earlier, that result in empty spots in editorial or empty writer spots. So there's always room in SBYIR for more students. Definitely, you know, don't let anything like discourage you. And as we explained before, there's many ways to be involved in an organization, even if you don't get into the writer or staff batch. But we do really hope that, you know, all of you that are interested definitely still apply and don't let that kind of scare you or intimidate you. I definitely joined not entering my freshman year or anything, not having that much experience, but I really enjoyed SBYIR for, you know, all the experiences that I've been able to get through SBYIR.
Yeah, I do want to make 2 points that as a writer, if you've written 1 year or 1 semester, definitely do not be afraid of don't think that, you know, just because you've been a writer 1 semester, we won't take you on for the 2nd semester. That's definitely not how that works at all. We typically do keep some of our writers from each semester with us because they just are interested in writing again. And we don't really, the only thing that limits that is really just like availability in editors. But that hasn't been a problem in the last couple of years at all. I had another point that I wanted to make was that if you are a writer, you can certainly, and you want to be involved in cabinet maybe, or layout or editorial like a peer reviewer, you can definitely make that transition. You know, you just have to apply again, you know, through a staff application, but that transition is definitely possible. I see another question. Can you apply to more than 1 staff position? Like, for example, peer reviewer and cabinet member? You certainly can do that. You just have to fill out a application separately for each of them. So on our staff application, fill 1 out for peer reviewer and then submit that, and then fill 1 out for cabinet member and submit that. That's really it. Another question, will everyone that applied to become a cabinet staff member be interviewed? No, not everyone will be interviewed. Once we close the applications, we take a look at all of them, and then we only offer a select number of people from the applicant pool to be interviewed, and from there we take on only a few from the interview. So it is essentially kind of 2 rounds of the application that you have to go through. But yeah, not everyone will be offered an interview. Good question.
And of course, we'll be accommodating, considering, you know, the pandemic. Will definitely have virtual interviews for those of you that, you know, of course, we don't even know if we can have in-person interviews at all. It might just end up having to be all virtual.
Yeah, I also want to say, I don't think we didn't address this in the presentation, but if you are not staying on campus this semester, obviously it's a unique situation, and I really would not let that stop you from applying to be a member of SBYIR, whether it be a writer or a staff member. You know, last semester when we went online, all of the editors were able to communicate well with their writers. Writers were able to work virtually. Staff members, we did meet virtually via Zoom, and we are potentially exploring either a socially distanced in-person or a hybrid version of a meeting, or even a virtual meeting next semester, based on whatever the administration wants to do with that. So definitely don't let you staying home or commuting be a hindrance to the application, whether you apply.
Mm-hmm. And just to add to that, sorry, to discuss, the layout, and people that are interested in applying to layout, I know that, of course, when it comes to these softwares, it's always a complicated situation. We will, of course, not expect you to buy or purchase Adobe Creative Cloud in any way, shape, or form. We understand that it is a financial burden. Recently, Stony Brook rolled out this new platform of having what's called a remote sync site, where basically you can log into a Stony Brook computer from your own computer and access Stony Brook software. So this includes the Adobe Creative Cloud Suite. That is going to obviously be a little bit of like beta testing once we start the semester. If it turns out that that programming isn't working well, we will work to get you in design in some other way, shape, or form, but we will not expect you to have to purchase anything. So we are understanding in that way. We're all students. We all understand where everyone else is coming from.
Yep. If anyone has any more questions, we'll give a couple of minutes for anybody who had any additional questions.
I have a question.
Yes.
Can you discuss further the time commitments associated with the different staff positions?
Yes, definitely. So Priya, I'll let you take cabinet and layout, and I can describe a little bit about editorial. So,
Okay.
Editorial, as I mentioned a little bit before, I think that I hesitate to give specific hours or time commitment for the for writers, because different people write at different rates, and it really depends on how fast you write, how much time you take to write a piece. But I would say that in my experience as a associate editor, as a managing editor, and now as an editor-in-chief, that as long as you as a writer can communicate well any concerns with your editor and with your any like higher up e-board, as long as you can express your concerns about not making a deadline, and obviously have good time management skills, I think you should be fine in terms of time commitment. As I was I was never a writer, but I was an editor, so now I can speak to that a little bit about that time commitment. Again, I don't have specific hours in mind, but when I was associate editor, I was also taking 17 to 18 credits a semester, and yet I was still able to put time into to edit articles each week. So I definitely don't think it's a huge burden, as long as, like I said, you have good time management skills and you are able to reach out to us when something conflicts or when you just might not have enough time. And in that case, we definitely can provide more time for you in that case. Let's talk about that, yeah.
So I'll talk about layout first. So for layout editors, typically, since it's usually layout editors do most of their work between when the last draft is submitted and when we have to get the journal ready for publishing, because it needs time to print and be ready in time for the colloquium. So as normally, I didn't mention this earlier, we distribute the journals at the colloquium typically. So when it comes to the layout editors, they usually work between October, mid to late October and mid to late November. That's their main time. And it's typically, since it's only 2-3 weeks in the semester, I don't really know off the top of my head like what the time estimate is, but it's a moderate workload. It's nothing too crazy. Training doesn't take that much. And honestly, with layout recently, they implemented a master layout system, which makes everything really streamlined and pretty straightforward. It's just like a little bit of a learning curve, and then it's really simple. So that's approximately when layout is hardest, but also before that and after that period, layout really doesn't have too much of a workload at all. Graphic editors, on the other hand, since it's a new position, of course, we can only give estimates of the amount of workload. However, since you are making a single graphic or, maybe a handful of graphics for the writers that you are assigned, it would most likely be, again, heavy during that same time period. So the end of October, early November, and, not really active too much before and after then. Of course, you could always start reaching out to your writer earlier to talk to them and get a feel for, who they are, what kind of, images they think might work right, or what aspects of their article they think might be clarified more or visually nice to think about. But of course, graphic editors, I would say, are just like a moderate workload during that same time period. On the other hand, when it comes to cabinet fluctuates more. It's more like we're busy when an event is coming up, or when we have something urgent coming up soon. So I would say, if I were to give an average across the weeks, it would be about 3 hours a week. We do try to meet fairly often, so like once a week or once every 2 weeks. Figure out what event planning needs to be done, and figure out if we need to talk to anybody for any collaborations, or if we need to send out any emails or anything. Cabinet is still active during the summer months, so I would say during the really competition heavy weeks, it has been like 5 hours a week or more during the summer, but it really depends on you and your availability. We are very understanding in cabinet that not everyone is super available during the summer.
I do want to add to that a little bit about time commitment for writers. Like I said, I didn't have specific time amounts because everybody writes at a different pace. But I do want to say that for larger piece writers, when I gave those 2-week interval deadlines, that, typically bigger piece writers like research reviewers, interview pieces and commentary pieces, those writers, they kind of start writing seriously 2 weeks into the semester, and they go towards almost to the end of October. So that is really your period of like consecutively writing for a number of weeks. After you hit that final deadline, your workload essentially tapers off for the rest of the semester, and you're not really doing a lot of work each semester as your piece moves on to layout and as it is incorporated into the journal. So it is a bit heavy in the beginning, but it definitely tapers off. For research highlight writers, like I said, they go on a schedule with different deadlines, different rounds. So while research highlight writers aren't responsible for producing a lot of content, that content is, they do have some content to write. So that content is really spread out evenly over the semester. So you will have deadlines both at the beginning and at the end of the semester. However, you have an ample, in my opinion, an ample amount of time to prepare those pieces for your deadline. I think we do have one question. Priya, this might be a webmaster question.
Yes. Actually, Steph, right before that, I think there is another new question. I don't know if you already answered it.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, there is. Let me get to that one first. Does seniority play a big role when getting a position, or do freshmen have a fair shot with the rest of the upperclassmen? I would say that's a really good question, and seniority does not play any role at all. Freshmen have a definite fair shot with the rest of the upperclassmen. And I would even argue that in some cases, we like when freshmen apply because we have those people to, those members have the chance to really grow with us as a club, and they are able to go into those, promoted to those higher e-board positions. So I personally applied as a freshman, and I started out as an associate editor. I then moved on to a managing editor in my freshman year, in my sophomore year, I believe. And then in my junior and senior years, where I am now, I am an editor-in-chief. So we definitely do not discriminate based on, what year you're in.
Definitely. And just as like a fun fact to add on to that, if any of you follow our Instagram, most of the people that we actually introduced joined as freshmen. So, or they joined SBYIR when they were freshmen. So I think right now we do have some current freshmen. I think we introduced Gabby, we introduced Ria. Ria was a freshman when she applied and she got in. Namrota, who we just introduced yesterday as one of the current managing editors, she also joined as a freshman. So you know, there isn't any kind of like year-based bias in any in that kind of way. So I'll answer Jonathan's question next. It's a great question, actually. I didn't get to, the chance to mention this earlier. So for the webmaster position, since our website is currently hosted by WordPress, you actually don't need to have that much extreme like markup experience or HTML5 experience. Since WordPress typically uses like a block, like a drag and drop kind of approach, there is an option to kind of override that and put in HTML instead. And we are always looking into, you know, getting the more advanced plans that allow us to look more into how we can take the website like the next step further. But there isn't any expectation that, you know, you should already know HTML5 or JavaScript or anything like that. It's a pretty actually straightforward position. Even I don't have any major experience with HTML or JavaScript, and I've actually posted highlights to our website before and worked on the website, so it's nothing too crazy. But if you love computer science, I mean, go crazy. Like we always have crazy ideas that aren't implementable with the way that WordPress, like their drag and drop like template system works.
But yeah, good question. So I don't see any new ones. Like I said before, I'll give you guys 2 or so minutes to have any other type out any other questions, and then we'll wrap up if we need to.
Yeah. Steph, do you actually mind switching to the email subscription slide?
Yes.
Just in case if any of you guys missed that slide earlier. I mean, we are posting this presentation onto YouTube anyways, but in case if you didn't get the chance to write this down, it's just tinyurl.com/SBYIR reminders. So if you want any like emails, you know, we're probably going to send one the day each application is due, and also like a few days before then. There'll also be an option to unsubscribe if you've already applied and you just don't want to get any more emails. We get that. But yeah, feel free to like fill out this form if you're interested.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, I don't think we have any more questions right now. If you have anything that comes to mind later, feel free to email or, you know, reach out to us on our social media. We're always responsive.
Yep. If anybody has nothing, I think in a few seconds we'll end the meeting. I just want to say thank you again to those of you who joined today and stayed throughout the presentation. If you need any information, please reach out to, you know, the SBYIR email. Rewatch this video if you need to. But thank you again, especially, you know, during these times. All right, let me stop sharing at this point. Okay. Alrighty, I think I'm going to end the call at this point. Priya, thank you for joining me today and to do this. Again, thank you all of you guys. I'm going to end it now. So I'll see you later, Priya. Thank you guys.